And welcome back. This is Alden Antonucci and with Extreme Power Hour Podcast. I'm super excited about this episode. I've got a great friend of mine, Jeff Krogstad, that's been here in Montana since mid-1970s. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Wow.
That's when I was born.
48 years
Just
passes like that.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And you've probably seen this town grow since it was called, a cow town back in the day? I mean, paint a picture for us and our audience to show where Bozeman was before and where Bozeman is today. How's
Absolutely. It's been a lot of changes over the years. My dad was a cop and started in 1978. Be able to hear the stories of him going out and dealing with the drunks in town, and it was always a call to cow towns. We dealt with the cowboys. He didn't have to deal with the interesting crowd that you have now, which is a mix of all the influx has come in. 19th ended at Durston. It was nothing but a dirt road all the way out there.
Wow.
You look at 19th, now you've got all that growth that's happened out that way. So 19th wasn't there. Then you take a look at North 7th, and in the 80s, going into early 90s, North 7th was a backed-up traffic jam all the way to Main Street because people were trying to get on the interstate. So when they finally figured out they need to get another interchange put in, so 19th was there. How fine. All the way from downtown all the way out. It was a 2-lane highway all the way out.
Wow.
Now we got 5 lanes, center turn lane, and it's changed a lot. And I take a look back and I look at my grandfather and all the changes that he's seen, because my family's been here for 6 generations. My kid make it 6. And so to be able to see what my grandfather has seen for changes, the old service shops that used to be right there on the corner of Rouse and Main that's been converted over.
Yeah.
You take a look at there used to be a stock car track out at the fairgrounds. They used to use racing back in the 1950s out at the fairgrounds.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So that was right in town.
Wow.
And so, you take a look at that, and then you take a look at the hub of the valley that's happened in Belgrade, right there where Bozeman Health is building the urgent care. Hub of the Valley racetrack used to be right there on the corner of I-90 and Jackrabbit. So there was always a fun theme to see people complaining about the noise and all that kind of stuff. So that's now changed to a much bigger venue out by the airport. And the airport itself,
oh my gosh,
just one runway, commercial. It definitely had a lot of changes. Now we were probably down way at the bottom of the list for the commercial traffic to Missoula, Billings, and Great Falls. But now we're number 1 for commercial traffic in the airport right now in the state.
Is Bozeman, and talking about that, why is Bozeman particularly, is there anything different about Bozeman, or what's that uniqueness about Bozeman that is causing such growth?
Why did you come to Bozeman? Ooh. What do you like about Bozeman?
Oh, my gosh.
Because I want to put it on you, because you came here for a reason, too.
So I'm going to put it this way. I'm an island boy, born and raised from an island off the coast of Maine that was 14 miles long, mile in the widest point. And so population of 500 when it was at its busiest point. Had 6 people in my 6th grade. So I came from this small town USA that lived on an island. Yep. And obviously we moved here to Montana and found our way to Bozeman. And to answer your question quickly about why was Bozeman so attractive is because for some reason Bozeman had this ambiance, this uniqueness that it was had a better quality of living.
Yep.
And so that's why my parents, particularly because I was a kid at that time, was very much attracted to this area.
There's a lot of values that are well liked about Bozeman. You've got the mountains, you've got the plains, you got the flatlands, you got Flathead, you've got a lot of different national parks around here. So why Bozeman? Well, you take a look at MSU, you're cranking out thousands of graduates every year. They come to fall in love with it. They leave for several years and then come back. And so what we've seen is a culmination of people that have fallen in love for all the amenities that Bozeman has. And they're bringing back that generational wealth of their parents after they pass away. So you bring that in here, plus their prowess in their professional lives, bringing back in the semiconductor industry in the valley is absolutely incredible. There's biotech, there's the architectural department, engineering. There's a lot of high dollar value jobs that have been created, and a lot of that is fueled by an amazing MSU program and in a lot of different areas. And so you take a look at that, and you get those people that come in, go to school, and then they turn around and go do their thing, or they stay here and they create the jobs and be able to do that. So that's, I think, where a lot of that fuel is there. Then in the 90s, internet, and we became discovered outside Bozeman. All these different organizations are looking for the top places to be able to live.
Well, it's funny that you say the 90s, because we came to Montana in 96. And then at the late 90s, we wanted to find our way here as fast as possible, just for those very facts that you're mentioning. But more of the opportunities, the lifestyle, adventure in the mountains.
What is really amazing about what's happened is that it's shown that the American dream is alive and well here in Bozeman, that you can have the opportunity to build a business and be successful. I'm a shining proof of that through my photography, creating a business and be able to go, build 700 SKUs through Montana Shapes, products that I've been able to create. You look at yourself, I mean, that growth has been able to fuel opportunities where you see these businesses that become maxed out. And that creates the opportunities for other companies. You guys have been able to come in and make a huge step in this market. And, there's money in this valley. There's a stat that I heard from somebody that basically said there's more trust fund accounts in the banks in Bozeman than there are per capita in a lot of other places. And that's the stat that I heard probably about 10, 15 years ago, that there's people that come here, they don't have to work, but they've got trust funds that they're able to live off of, and they're adding that value. It's been very recession-proof because of the influx of Big Sky money and the millions of dollars that go to building up the Big Sky mountain. And so all those laborers and workers come from here up there. And it's creating a perfect storm right now, from the sense that we're loved, but we're almost getting loved to death.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because affordability, being able to live. I'm fortunate to be able to live in the same house that my mom was born in.
Wow.
And so my mom was able to inherit the house and the 5 acres, and so that's where I'm raising my kids, and I'm very fortunate for that.
That's awesome. And you were mentioning on a good point that I want to bring up is Big Sky. And if you could say there's a couple different catalysts that's causing this growth of Bozeman. And it kind of feels like we're about here. We're not at the exponential growth yet. We're trying to get ready, it feels like, for something bigger that's awaits Bozeman. And so we got Big Sky, which actually turned into, is it the largest ski in North America? And so that was Moonlight Basin and Big Sky. And Big Sky bought out Moonlight Basin, which is basically on the same ski hill. It just kind of broadened their vision. And now Big Sky is turning into, let's call it the Alpine, right? Or they call it the Boulder of Colorado, right? Which is just outside of Denver. So it's almost like Bozeman's got this like fever. And it's like the sleeping giant that's about to be awakened. And I heard about Bridger. There's a couple other things going on with Bridger and the expansion and everything like that. So, I mean, where is Bozeman not growing?
It's very hard to show where it's not growing. And where it's not growing, and it's got me concerned, is affordable housing.
Bingo.
And that affordable housing, even though we see these megaplex apartment complexes are going in, I mean, these are $100 million. I don't know if it's $100 million. It's got to be $100 million for these big complexes they're putting in. And so you're adding apartments in the thousands, and we're still not seeing that rent market soften out a little bit. So now we're seeing the challenge that fellow businessmen are having to deal with. And Dan Fletcher, bless him for sticking his neck out and being able to say something because he's really brought attention to it.
Right.
And with the number of people that are living in their cars and parking trailers on the streets and that kind of stuff, I can identify with their plight because of the challenges that they can deal with in affordable housing. I'm very fortunate that I don't have to tackle with the affordable housing myself personally.
Right.
But what we're dealing with is that we have rules that are put in place to be able to protect that quality of life that we have.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're seeing that quality of life being diminished a little bit. I don't think it's terrible to the point where we're running up against a brick wall, but we're running into a situation where we don't know who's in those trailers. We don't know if there's drugs, the criminal activity that's happening. And, the city commission, unfortunately, I ran for the city commission in 97. I'm glad I didn't get elected, but it's the city commission itself has really dropped the ball in being able to enforce the rules and the laws that are on the books and making sure that we can protect that quality of life that everybody else has come to enjoy.
So we're almost dealing with this, let's call it Los Angeles problems, first world problems, where we're going to see crime, we're going to see the rise of homelessness, and nobody wants to see the homelessness. No. But what you're saying is that's a catalyst because people can't afford. They got here literally with their boots and their shirt on their back and nothing else, and they're forced to basically live in their cars in these kind of situations. And you brought up Dan Fletcher, correct?
Dane Fletcher.
Yeah, Dane Fletcher, who owns the Pit, correct?
Yep.
And correct. So he's a local business owner that actually used to be on the Patriots. Is that right?
Yep. He was a professional football player.
Yeah. And so he's got this city mentality. And so he's already kind of used to this kind of stuff. But it's literally knocking on his door because you've got the homeless that are living in cars or in campers, trailers, literally outside his door, which is affecting his bottom line, which is his business, on how he supports himself and his family. And he employs a lot of people. Yeah. And so is there any kind of cure for that?
There is no cure. I believe in the market price, the supply and demand. The very basic economics where you get more supply, you can bring down the prices. Mm-hmm. And so you take a look at that. We just need more supply to help bring down those prices for the rentals and that kind of stuff, be able to get people in there. I don't think that even if you get the right amount of supply, that you're going to get everybody out of those trailers into there, because I think there are some people that choose to live on those trailers tax-free. They're getting free garbage, removal and that kind of stuff, that they're choosing to live in the shadows and not participate in our society. That I think that it's important to realize that even though if we get enough supply, you'll help some of those people that truly need it. But there are some people that, because of their criminal backgrounds, addictions, and that kind of stuff, that are not going to move into another place, and they're just living in those shadows. That I think there's going to be a bigger problem that we're going to need to take a look at to be able to fully solve that.
Right. And like you're saying, there's not one cure fits all.
That's right.
One apartment doesn't fit a whole family. And so there's got to be some kind of balance in there. And, just kind of hitting, we were talking about statistics a little bit. I think people want to kind of know where we were. So from what I've heard, about 2-3 years ago, let's call it pre-pandemic time, we were hitting around between 300,000-400,000, maybe mid 400,000s. Right now, the median home price isn't 300,000 to 400,000. No. How much do you think that is?
It's up to $800,000 to $900,000.
So just in that influx of a couple of years, you can't put affordable living on those dollar amounts. No. You'd have to be making 6 figures minimum to even buy a condo, probably into the $600,000-$700,000 range. But you were saying too, the growth wise, that what we're seeing like with MSU is bringing in laser companies, a little piece of Silicon Valley doing microchips, software, high tech jobs, which actually brings, let's call it a California salary, where some people are able to afford it. And exactly. Like you're saying, trust funds, a lot of people don't think about that. trust fund is basically coming down to generational wealth that has been passed down, where money is no object, so therefore they can buy whatever house they want. At the people that are, let's call it homeless, or they're dealing in these situations, they're kind of being pushed out on the fact of they'll never be able to afford it unless you're almost making six figures. So yourself as an employer, myself as an employer, it's hard to find good employees. And even though you want to pay them the wage that they more than deserve, they still can't even afford to stay here, even when they are receiving the money that they need.
If they're able to stay here, they have to commute to the bedroom communities that you take a look at.
Right.
One of the top salesmen that I know I'm friends with from high school, he works in Belgrade. He commutes to Whitehall because that was the only place he could afford to buy a house. And so you got these people who are willing to commute back and forth. That commuting aspect is also what's driving up the opportunity for people to come here, because there's people that are willing to commute an hour to go where they're at because that's where they're at. But what they don't take into account is that all those different people that are coming here to do that is really caused a lot of headaches for our interstates and the ice that it creates and people coming in here and getting that taken care of. So you got everybody coming here and you got the money and you got a demand that's already extremely high for housing. Would you, if you were selling your home, want to deal with the banks and go through all that stuff, or I've got all cash to buy your house? Would you want to much rather deal with all cash and be closed less than 30 days?
All cash and above asking.
Exactly.
And that's what's going on.
That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
There's condos. I also do property management, so I'm seeing a lot of that aspect of it. And I'm seeing condos at a complex that I manage. Pre-pandemic, those condos were going for $320,000.
Wow.
And these are one bedroom, one bath. Post-pandemic, the demand and the pricing got driven up so high that several of those condos, because they had the indoor garage, were going for $680,000.
Wow.
And
just doubled. Doubled within a year or two.
Exactly. And it's amazing what's happening. So cash talks in this town.
Right. And is anything going to change? I guess from a 1975 perspective, has anything changed in Bozeman? It went from sleepy town to Los Angeles. Are we going to go back to a sleepy town, or those days are gone?
We're never going to go back. Politically wise, we have been driven so far to the left with the influx of people. You can see the stats that the influx of politics we've seen in this town drive too far left. The city commission now is all blue. So you're seeing that influx that's affecting the local elections. We're not going to see ourselves go back to those sleepy days because you now have 2 high schools in this community. We now have 3 AA high schools in this valley as well. And so just going from Class B to Class A in Belgrade to now AA, now we have 2 AA high schools in Bozeman. Plus, we have a couple of Christian schools that are out there that are also high school based. That I don't think we're ever going to go back just because of the fact that the town changed so much, and there's a lot of those values from those bigger cities that we're seeing being incorporated into local politics, into local nonprofits for helping build this community into what they had at home, and they're bringing it here. And some of it's good. I have no problems with the change, but some of the change is people trying to bring in what they had home and bring it here. And it seems like for those of us that have lived here a long time, yourself included, you've been here for 30 years, almost 30 years, that some of those changes aren't reflective of the values that we came to love and enjoy growing up here.
Right. And so what you were saying before is Bozeman was more of a sleepy, let's call it a red town, conservative town. And now it's almost flipped completely, where now it's a left blue town. Yep. I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just a matter of we're part of this changing tides. The tide is changing, correct? Yep. And you've been seeing it from the politics all the way back to the mid-'90s when you were running for commissioner.
That's correct.
To where it's going today, where I don't know where it's going to stop, I should say, in those sense of terms.
And I think it just gets down to the fact that we just need to be able to learn how to get along. be able to talk and understand that having the biggest budgets, and we continually pass all the different budget increases, the mills that they get for the city and the schools. You know, I went to school at Emerson School. When I went to school, it was just Emerson, Hawthorne, Irving, and Longfellow. Those were the schools that were in town. Those were all old school buildings. Right. And Emily Dickinson and Morningstar opened up. That was big for that town, for this town when we were growing up. And so be able to see those changes, now we're looking at building another school, and it almost seems like we're getting reckless with our money because we're looking at building another elementary school, and we're talking about closing down Irving or Longfellow or Hawthorne, and it just seems almost wasteful, in my opinion. And I think that some people need to just stand up because, you know, we're in a town where people are willing to vote for everything that comes down their pike. And all those people that are voting, a lot of them are renters. They don't feel the impact of the property taxes on them. Right. But then they complain about their rent going up because now they're paying for that property tax increases.
Oh my gosh. And obviously, like we've determined, it's not going to stop. It's a matter of being flexible enough, and you got to kind of grow with the situation, right? And so, at this point in time, do you see Bozeman curving straight up? Are we on the exponential growth, or are we kind of calming down right now?
That's a very good question. I think that we're eventually going to see what's called a triangle, I-90 to Huffine and Jackrabbit. I think we'll see all of that infilled inside that triangle. And I think that triangle is going to eventually be the metropolitan of the Bozeman and the Belgrade Valley and that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I think that's where we're going to see ourselves going, because you can see 80 acres, 200 acres. I got a lot of chunks of land that are being slated for development, right. And it's gonna keep growing. I don't see it stopping anywhere. You can't stop it, and if you try to, you're going to run into a boulder situation that you have in Colorado, where you got this huge donut on the outside and very limited growth on the inside, but all the growth that's happening on the outside. And if you're going to try to fight it, then now you got all those people still coming into the city services. You're not collecting any taxes off of those.
Put too much demand.
Because you're bringing all the people coming in.
Right.
So it's a catch-22. It's nice to have some growth, but at the same time, grow it in a manner that is going to be equitable.
Right, right. And so you're bringing up Boulder again. And I know you don't want to talk about it, but I bet you're thinking the same thing. Why is Bozeman being called the Boulder of Colorado? Is it Olympics on the rise? Is that a possibility? Do you think the Olympics could ever be in Bozeman, Montana? Ooh, gotcha on that one.
Yes and no. I'm going to say no, because of the billions of dollars in infrastructure you'd have to bring to make it happen. I want to say no from the standpoint we got enough attention in this valley. We don't need any more. If you start talking about Olympics, there is also the propensity of that it could bring in the ability to bring in a new aquatic center, that kind of stuff. But somebody's got to pay for that. And I don't think this community can handle that much of a debt burden to be able to have that.
Right. And there's certain areas that they are growing out, like commercially, next to the airport. That's a big one.
Yep.
And in that same I-90 corridor, because Bozeman now is called kind of like the gateway to Yellowstone.
It is. Right? Yep.
And so that's why the airport, let's call it, just expanding, because we're given these titles, right? Yep. And one of those titles, being the gateway to Yellowstone, is going to be that influx of visitors. Obviously, Yellowstone National Park, Big Sky, all the touristy attractions that are around here, which are amazing and beautiful, that we take for granted. They have the Yellowstone complex that's right there next to the airport. And when you're talking about billions of dollars, that's already ledgered for that build out to spend billions of dollars. And that's only one of the major projects that they're going to put into effect. And you can see the other effects that they're going to bring to like Bridger. That one lane Bridger road that was just like the 19th, that was a dirt road. And now you look on both sides of the road, we've got Lowe's, Home Depot, we've got Costco, Super, Walmart. And that's what's happening in the Bridger corridor right now, that they're going to expand all those roads to be just like 19th and basically have a 4-lane to get up to Bridger and enjoy, let's call it the Boulder of Colorado, enjoy those donut areas that are just outside of town.
So let's keep it going. I mean, we're talking about people who are talking about doing a tramway, a railway all the way down to Big Sky.
Right.
So we're talking about people that wanted to do that. That's another billions of dollars that you can take a look at to get that done. Mm-hmm. That could substantially change. Now, let's get back to this side. You get that many more people here, we got to be able to drink water. We got to be able to have food and have all that
energy. They say we're 125% on the grid right now. That's over. They're going above and beyond.
Yep.
Not to pull in Ray Water or any of those other water districts, but they're already like, hey, cut it, gentlemen. Like, we got to catch up over here. We have to infrastructure.
We won't be able to sustain what we have going on based on the 2 water sources that we have up in the Gallatin range. And so now we got to take a look at a proposal that I'm still perplexed at it, because it would be another $1 billion project to basically stick a straw in the ground from here all the way up to Canyon Ferry to start pulling water and do water treatment, and then we turn around, we pump it all the way back and put it in the ferry. So that is one of the proposals that was put out there, that you get water waste treatment put here,
right.
And then they're thinking they can get enough cities to be in line to help out with an idea like that. But you're only talking, what, Three Forks, Townsend, Toston? No, they wouldn't be interested. So you go all the way down the line. An idea of putting that straw in the ground and be able to cycle that water back and forth all the way to Canyon Ferry, it seems like an awful risky proposition to be able to get that much going, because you're going up and over a couple of ranges to be able to get there. You're going to have to cross over the Missouri, and that's going to be an eyesore as well to be able to make that happen. So, there's a lot of different issues that you got to take a look at. And the water, I think, is going to be a big concern going forward, being able to make sure that you can serve this community.
Right.
Do we want the Olympics? I don't think we're big enough, and we would be too big. I don't think we have enough hotels to be able to handle that. We'd have to build all kinds of stuff for it. If we can do it, then it's paid for by everybody else, and the benefits there. But I don't know. The Olympics would be cool, but I think it'd be more of a burden. You hear a lot of these stories about these different communities that have done the Olympics, but then they are in debt forever.
Right. And the infrastructure. So there's a couple key elements that you need to have the Olympics. Mm-hmm. We're actually talking about it right now, where a lot of people will just kind of talk hush to hush. But there's some elements that you need to have. Infrastructure is going to be key, which is going to include power, water, sewer. And you're saying sticking a straw in the ground is no easy feat. And people that aren't familiar where Canyon Ferry is, it's about 45 minutes away.
Yep.
Correct? And let's put it roughly about between 30 and 50 miles, depending on where they're going to tie in at.
Yep.
I mean, that's no easy feat.
Yep.
Right?
That's correct.
And so we actually got to pump it uphill and downhill to even get there. So $1 billion project would probably take years to even have enough infrastructure. But at the same time, they're pushing for trams. They're pushing for infrastructure in these key areas that would help with having the Olympics here. But even then, can Bozeman handle an influx of 100,000 people? That's basically Bozeman's population now in the Gallatin County is about 100,000. Is that right?
It's about 100,000. Yeah.
Right.
That's about right.
And so if we were to be be a candidate for the Olympics, they typically choose between 8 to 12 years out. So we'd actually be selected today for, let's say, a 2032 or a 2036. Mm-hmm. And so they say, hey, you got 10 years, get your poop in a group, right? And so we got a lot of poop to get going.
Yeah.
Literally, pumping uphill.
And the prevailing thought that if you take a look at two different schools of thought,
yeah,
you're a businessman, you make a profit, you can pay for it because you make the money. So that's one prevailing thought. The other part is if you're a businessman, you're looking to get a loan, you want to get that paid for. So you got the one school of thought that out there on the left that thinks that you should be able to pay for it because all these businesses are making a profit. They can pool their money and they can pay for it. So that would be the one thought that would be out there that, you guys are all making money. I'm making money that we should pay for it. So that's one school of thought. It goes that school of thought goes back to the city commission meeting where you had a commissioner that stepped up and said that you as a business owner should go ahead and buy space heaters for all these different people that are living in the trailers. So have you done your duty and buy a space heater for these guys in their trailer yet?
I haven't. I haven't yet. I bet if I went to go buy a space heater, I bet I couldn't even find one in town. And that's what brings a whole nother point.
Yeah.
That when people come to town, I say, hey, welcome to a little piece of Hawaii, because we're kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And nobody goes to Hawaii to save money.
That's right.
And so if you did nothing but ship stuff into Bozeman, you could basically make 20% or build a business on those simple concepts. If you can find employees, storage, living situation, and the list goes on. And it obviously all revolves around people want to be here.
Yep.
There's that, what's called a slice of paradise that's sitting here for everyone. Whether it's the ones that want to live in their cars to the ones that want to live on top of Triple Tree or in Bridger, Big Sky, Yellowstone Club. We haven't even talked about the whole Yellowstone market that's bringing in not only trustees, but bringing in the uber wealthy, the super wealthy, that, they take airplanes and they take helicopters just from the airports just so they don't have to do the slippery drive all the way to Big Sky and touch down right in their front lawn. So it's bringing these two worlds together. And I feel like Bozeman is becoming every day more of a melting pot. Whether you almost have to be bilingual now. When just a year ago, 2 years ago, it was kind of that sleepy town in those aspects. But now, ethnicity, we're getting this melting pot concept, which as a business owner, I love, and a wife that's not even from America, but she's now a citizen. It's great to see Bozeman come together. And when you go to Costco, it's not just the same old faces anymore. It's new faces every day.
Montana State has a huge part in being able to bring everybody from around the world to be a part of the community. When I was going to MSU, I graduated in 2002, and I met so many amazing people from different parts of the world, and it's just amazing to see the difference in the cultures and that kind of stuff. Some of those people are coming back here to be able to be a part of this community, and the diversity of ideas to be able to solve problems is where I get most excited, because they all come from a different background, and it's exciting to see that. It's kind of humbling to be able to sit across the table from somebody that has gone through an experience in their lifetime that you can never relate to because of the struggles they had growing up. And they'd be able to come to Montana and enjoy what we have and be able to live in freedom. And so it's pretty amazing to be able to see that.
Yeah, very cool. And you brought up a good point before. You were talking about the high school. And there's a lot of politics that go to high schools, including names, to what classification they are, and all of those. And I know you've seen it from 1970s all the way it is today, and your mind's about to explode just thinking about it. And so maybe the audience that's paying attention today might want to hear more about what are those high school politics and things that are changing their taxes when you're paying property taxes. You want to know, why is it going up? What's going on with that situation in the politics in the high schools?
The lion's share of property taxes in Montana go towards education. So it's anywhere from 40 to 60% of your property taxes go to education. And so you have to pay for the growth with all these new elementary schools that come in. And unfortunately, I think we're up to 8 elementary schools, that you get to the point where you have that many. You got 2 big middle schools. You can't keep funneling them all into an old high school, Bozeman High School. So we finally got to the point where we had to get Gallatin High School. And so that was an exciting moment to be able to say we've been able to grow to the point we have a second high school.
Which I've heard on that fact that Gallatin High School is one of the best high schools in the nation. Is that correct?
As they've been able to achieve academic recognition for what they've been able to do. Erica Schnee is the principal, and she actually graduated 1 or 2 years before me from Bozeman High School, and she's done nothing but extraordinary things for that high school, and it's been a lot of fun to be able to see that. You step back, and once you can't just build a school, you got to be able to create an identity. And so the whole process of being able to get that built was a naming committee that went out, and they started getting submissions for names. And I can't remember how many names they got whittled all the way down. And eventually they were looking at between West Slope High School and Spanish Peaks High School. Gallatin High School was in the mix, but it got down to Spanish Peaks and West Slope. And so the naming committee ended up choosing West Slope. And it had no geographic connection to this area as far as any landscape, landmarks or anything like that. And so what it found out is they were actually looking to name it West Slope High School after the West Slope Cutthroat. And I put a poll on Facebook, and I said, does anybody know or understand where the term West Slope?
This is the first time I've heard of this, so this is great information.
The high school is actually named West Slope High School for a period of about 30 days. And that's when I raised my hand. I did a Facebook poll, and I asked people, I said, do you guys agree with this name for the high school? And I had over 2,000 people that took the poll, and 85% of them said, heck no, they didn't like the name. And so
who makes that decision then at that
point?
It
was a committee of folks that were appointed by the superintendent, and they wrestled all the way through. So it got down, my understanding, got down to Spanish Peaks High School and West Slope. And so they chose West Slope because of a very strong student presentation to get it chosen for that. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, West Slope Cutthroat, what are we going to say? Go fish, go trout, go. And I was just I was getting frustrated by it. It's that's not how I want a new high school. It's to be named after a trout, and so I was contacted by a buddy of mine who was a major at the time. He was working in Washington, D.C. He said, Jeff, we need to name the high school after Travis Atkins. He earned the Distinguished Service Cross before wrapping himself up over a suicide bomber, saving 3 of his men in his squad, and they couldn't find his body for over 20 minutes. He had blown up that far in sacrificing his life, so they finally found him in some reeds in Iraq, is where this happened at. And this was his second or third tour that he was over there.
Wow, what an inspirational story.
We started the push, and we had overwhelming support, and it basically got down to 50-50 to be able to get Travis Atkins or West Slope. And I had enough support that the superintendent said, okay, if we don't think we got enough support to do Travis Atkins. So let's take a look at what would be the school name? And I said, I think Gallatin High School would be a fair compromise. And in the middle of all that conversation, I was told that Travis was going to be upgraded to the Medal of Honor. And I was asked to go ahead and let that slide for naming the high school. Let's just focus on Gallatin High School so we can focus on him to get the Medal of Honor. And so 2 weeks later, President Donald Trump made the announcement that Travis Atkins was going to be awarded the Medal of Honor. The night before, or actually literally 2 nights before, I was supposed to go to Washington, D.C. to watch his son receive his Medal of Honor on his behalf. The high school name was officially changed after 30 days from West Slope to Gallatin High School, and that's where it officially ended at that point. And then, so I was fortunate. My wife and I basically had 2 weeks to make plans, so we got to go and watch his son, Trevor, receive the Medal of Honor from President Donald Trump. And we were sitting in the gold room of the White House and be able to be a part of that whole situation.
Wow.
And then came back, and then we had continued conversation about the mascot. And so all the support that I had was saying, let's keep pushing to do something. And so we were looking to get Mountaineers set up as the mascot. So that again got down to the last last meeting where it was either Mountaineers or the Raptors, and so they chose the Raptors for that.
Right.
And now, it's in hindsight, I'm okay with it. We're still going to find some ways to honor Travis. I went to school at Emerson School with Travis, and so that goes all the way back in the days where we spent a lot of time up in Highlight. Before you could go and shoot your 22s and that kind of stuff, Travis and I and another buddy of mine would always go up to Highlight, and we could just shoot and plank around and that kind of stuff. And that's all that growth that we've seen has kind of taken away that childhood opportunity that I had to be able to go up in the mountains, just shoot and be free as kids and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so you were talking a lot about Travis. And so obviously you were saying you went to elementary school with Travis.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that's such an inspirational story that a lot of people don't even know, that those connections of Travis and what he did over there in a time of war and saved a bunch of soldiers. He was born and raised right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Literally from here, it's about 3 miles from here.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. So we got to do a lot growing up. He was one of those kids that was raised right by his parents, and be able to accept somebody like myself with a hearing loss, that growing up through elementary school, I was still being able to figure out who I was. It was those values that are so strong in this valley growing up, that I had a lot more friends and people that accepted me for who I was and not what I was. And so, with my hearing loss, I got 85% hearing loss.
Wow.
And so that means my parents were told that I wouldn't be able to speak normal, I wouldn't be able to go to a normal school, and that I'd more than likely have to go to school for the deaf and blind. I graduated from Bozeman High School. I graduated from MSU, so kind of blew all that up, and not being able to speak normal here, I was given the microphone to be the announcer out of the stock car track. So this will be my 5th year being out there.
Yeah.
And so I love it, and it's all about being able to have fun, let people enjoy themselves and have a good time.
Yeah. And I think that's another one of the treasures in Bozeman that people don't even really know a lot about, that every day it's growing more and more, and that's the stock cars.
Yeah.
And that's bringing in a whole nother crowd. It's not just people with money at that point, but it's also bringing in people that are very enthusiastic, that love the great outdoors, that even rain or shine, snow, it doesn't matter. People are going to sit there and watch these amazing stock cars.
But I will back to, I love the enthusiasm. There's a thing called rainouts. We can't race on the mud.
Right.
So if you get rain, we're out.
Right.
So
right. To a certain extent.
We can't quite skate around that track.
Right.
So this last year was a disaster for Dave and Sue, because I think we had 6 or 7 rainouts last year, which is the worst year for them.
Right.
And so you get rain, or like a couple of years before, you get lightning that hits a substation. We're ready to race, but we had lightning that hits a substation, and they can't get it back up, so we had to cancel because of that. But
oh my!
But we're bringing in cars. There's cars that are coming in from Williston, North Dakota, to come race here. The ASCS sprint cars that come in, And then every now and then you're out there sponsoring a stock car race and having a lot of fun. So
yeah, we love it. We love sponsoring our night, typically in July.
Yeah,
it's amazing. We're able to bring employees out there. We're able to bring their families, and just a good reason to get everyone together. And I think that's what Bozeman values really are, is we're a community first.
Yep.
Right? There might be individual families, but you know what? Bozeman, when it comes together, we get stuff done.
Yeah.
You know, and whether this Olympics thing, if this is going to happen or not, Bozeman's going to come together.
They'll figure it out.
They will figure it out. If they got to put straws in the ground to get the water here, they're going to figure it out.
Yep.
And I think that's what Bozeman takes pride in. Just like Gallatin High and the Raptors, and this new high school is really showing what Bozeman's all about.
Yep.
And when people say it can't be done, we're going to figure it out. And not only are we going to figure it out, we're going to make this the best high school in the nation. One of the best high schools, especially for our class and everything else.
Yep.
And so I'm really proud to be Bozemanite. You know, yes, my roots are from Maine, and technically I'm a maniac forever. Yeah. But at the same time, my roots, I really feel, are here in Bozeman, and I love it. And I'm sure you do too.
My roots are deep, and I love it. And I'm excited about being able to raise my kids here. I want to be able to give them the tools to be successful and let them know what I wish I would have done, and to be able to put the tools in their hands so they can be in a better position than where I'm at today.
Right.
And give them the opportunity to be able to stand there on their own 2 feet and fight for what's right.
Right. And so is there anything that you could give words of advice, any counsel to people that are thinking about moving to Bozeman? What do you think that would be?
Be prepared for the winters. Yeah. Summers are beautiful. The scenery is amazing, but if you're going to come for Montana, be ready to stick it out because you'll have a mild winter like we have now, where it's been absolutely incredible. But then a winter like last year where we had 3 significant cold snaps, and just be ready for the extremes because Montana is a land of the extremes. Negative 40, and then we can be over 100 in the summer. And not every house has air conditioning, so be prepared for those elements. It's different. We love our outdoors and just be able to respect the code of the West and the ethics that come with it. Clean up after your dogs, and we love our dogs, but we don't like your crap that you leave behind. And that's really what it is.
No, I love it, Jeff. And I really appreciate you coming down here where we can talk about the hot topics in Bozeman, whether they're going to get the Olympics or not, whether they're going to put some straws in the ground, and to kind of fill the voids on the utility aspect of it to people moving in Bozeman and that council that, you know what, don't just move here just for the summer, but you got to look at it. We're 6 months summer, 6 months winter, and there's far in between. And we got a little bit of rain, but typically it's like that, isn't it?
Yep. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got to be ready for it all.
You got to be ready for it all.
And sometimes it gets real smoky here that you can't see the tip of your nose, but it'll be okay. It'll be clear
okay.
up.
Yeah.
And enjoy those blue skies that you have when you get the chance.
Right.
Montana's got it all.
Right. Well, you heard it here. Thanks for coming, Jeff.
Absolutely.
And this is Alden Antonucci with another Power Hour podcast. Stay tuned for the next.